Good morning. What's inside of you? Before we talk about what's inside of us, we have to talk about what's outside of us. Your environment and your experiences. Those are things that happen outside of us. God plants seeds. There are 7 billion seeds on earth. These seeds are what we call people. In order to grow, those seeds have to be planted. So as a seed, we're planted in soil or in dirt. In order to go through anything in life, the experiences of life, you have to get a little dirt on you. You take a seed and put it underground, and you cover it with dirt. In most cases, that dirt is called soil. Why soil? Because soil has all the nutrients in it that's needed to make that seed grow. Well, who put the nutrients in the soil? God. As we start to germinate, we begin to grow. And through that process, we go through a lot. Depending on your environment, depends on what soil you're put into. For me, that soil was the inner city. It was what some call the hood, is what some call the ghetto. And during that time, there were a litany of experiences that caused me to understand that I was covered in dirt. The choices that I made, the things that I saw growing up, the deaths, the killings, violence. Also inside of that, I had some great memories of going to the pool every single day throughout the summer, playing with my friends, playing football, playing basketball, playing in my neighborhood, riding bikes, all the things you do as a child, being poor and not even knowing that you're poor until you got outside of your environment and you went to school. When you started to go to school, you started to see other kids that lived in other neighborhoods. They may have had a little bit better bike than you. They may have had a little bit better clothes than you. They may have had other things that kind of made you question, are they better than me? Or what do they have that I don't have? Because all you know is your environment. All your friends live in the same place. Your family, pretty much for the most part, your immediate family lives in the same place. Wondering, what is it that they have that I don't? Not understanding that we're all planted. We're all seeds that are germinating in different ways. And being underground, those nutrients start to get inside of you. The sun starts to beam on you a little bit. Every now and again, you get a little water on you. And in most cases, when you think of getting water on you, you think of a great shower, which is always beautiful. You think of the sun beaming on you, which is always nice because you can feel that ray of sun in your face. But then you can also think about getting water on you by getting stuck in the rain and somebody raining on your parade. And as you're starting to grow, those things begin to happen more and more. Also, the sun shining on you can be thought of as being put on spotlight, being put on the spot. Somebody's calling you out. Somebody has an issue with you. You're in the spotlight. What are you going to do? And through all of that, it starts to determine who we are. It starts to make up our makeup. It starts to show us what's going to grow out of that seed. And now, we talk about that seed that has that shell, which is our outer body, which is what we get to see every day. Some of our smiles can be warm, can be bright, but on the inside, we can be suffering, and nobody will ever know. There's an analogy that I love is, everybody is going through something. They're either coming into a storm, in a storm, or coming out of a storm. For that reason, you must treat everybody with kindness, with respect, because you never know where people are. And especially during this time, people are so close to the edge that we must stay in tune to ourselves and maybe what other people may be going through. To continue to nurture that growth, you have to start to look inside. After about 7 years old, our minds are formed with everything that our environment has told us, what we've been indoctrinated into, what our parents have done for us, what our parents have told us. So we start to become an individual. We're not just seeds in a pack anymore. And that's when you look at the growth of some things that are planted. Some actually make it. Some actually grow. Some seeds fall on thorny ground and they don't grow. Some fall on bad soil and they get choked off. That's part of the process of growth. But again, God in his infinite wisdom put 7 billion seeds here on earth that made it. We're growing. We're born. We're people. We beat out 500 million sperm, brothers and sisters, to come here. Those are the seeds that didn't make it. So because you were planted simply means that there's a purpose that only you can fulfill. Because God has to forward this universe. And he forms it and he uses us to forward that mission. So we must take care of ourselves. Mentally, physically. And for me, that point in time came when I got out of high school. And it was time to go out into the real world. It was time to go to college. And in that process, it was choosing what was this seed going to be? What was the purpose of this seed? And everything that I had gone through up until that point, unbeknownst to me, was preparing me for this journey, for this purpose. Even up to today. I went to school. I went to a trade school. I became a machinist. I had no clue what that was before I got there. Didn't know what it did. Was able to graduate in 3 years with a degree. My first job out of college was at the shipyard in Newport News, Virginia, building aircraft carriers and submarines. I thought I had made it. $27 an hour? Man, life couldn't have been any better. This kid from the ghetto, who teachers told, you're never going to be anything probably besides a good football player if you can make it that far. You don't have the aptitude, having some special ed classes in elementary school because I had issues with reading comprehension. Having a dad who stayed on me and tried to do the right things in my life, put me in karate at 5.5 years old, got a black belt at 10. And at that point, nobody knew that you couldn't tell me that I couldn't do anything because I didn't see many people around me with black belts. So that was kind of the beginning of the thought process of knowing that this seed had a purpose. And so then you start to plant your own seed inside of you. And that seed that was planted inside of me was, we will win at all costs. We will live this journey amazingly. And I had that mindset at the shipyard. Then I quickly realized, talking to a lot of the guys that had been there for 20 years, 30 years, even 40 years, because that's about how long it takes if you work in the manufacturing plant to retire, fully vested, 40 years. And they said, son, I see something different in you. If there's anything else you want to do in life, get out of here, because you got it. I didn't know what that meant. But what I did know was most of the stories that they told me. And it was about, hey man, I was only really supposed to be here for a summer. My wife got pregnant, or I lost a job, or something happened, and now I'm here. And 40 years later, I'm still here. I never really got to do what it is I wanted to do. Then I wanted to make this money to support my family, so I missed my kids' ball games. I missed a lot of things, working on Saturdays and working overtime, trying to get this aircraft carrier and submarine out on time. And I didn't really look at it as that. I just looked at it as, I need to make this money for my family. And I started to pay attention to those stories, and I said, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing? Because I don't feel comfortable here. And that was after about 2 years. I then started to think about my future. Do I really want to be in this plant for the next 40 years? Do I really want to give somebody that much of my time that God has given me to serve a purpose? Is this my purpose? Building a boat for other people to get on to be safe. That's a great purpose for someone whose purpose that it's for, but that was not my purpose. After 3 years, creating great relationships, learning an exponential amount of information about safety, security, aircraft carriers, submarines, I ventured off and moved to North Carolina. Right before I moved to North Carolina, though, I got married. 23 years old. Young. At the time, my wife was looking at becoming a PharmD. She was a pharmaceutical sales rep. So she quit her job as a pharmaceutical sales rep, making about 70, 80 grand a year, and decided to become a PharmD, which means that she had to go to pharmacy school. But before that, finish prerequisites to get into pharmacy school. What did that do? That put a strain on our future. Because from 70, 80 grand down to $13 an hour was a big difference. Having to work 2 jobs to support a household. And then we talk about moving to North Carolina with no job, and her trying to get into UNC to go to pharmacy school. 2 miscarriages we went through in the process of our relationship. It broke us. 27, 28 years old, I got divorced here in North Carolina, ventured out on my own, got into contracting and flipping houses, felt great. I learned so much from being married. I learned so much about the process of divorce. I went to counseling because that was one of the first things that hit me that said, hey, something's not right with you. And of course, going through all the childhood trauma, all the things that you go through in life, all the dirt that gets thrown on you, and then you reach the pinnacle in your mind of, man, why am I even here? And going to counseling woke up something inside of me. It showed me that, hey, you're one of 7 billion people here for a purpose. You're gonna go through things because that's for your purpose. That's for your journey. That's part of your journey. You're gonna have ups and downs. You're gonna have trials and tribulations. But as we all hear and as we've all heard, it's not what happens to you. It's what you do with what happens to you, or how you respond to what happens to you. And I got down off my horse, felt like I went back in the dirt again, and had to start to evolve, had to start to rewrite what I felt like was my journey. And getting into contracting and flipping houses and becoming a home inspector, because I had lost so much money and my partners had lost money on projects that we had done where we were fixing things because of aesthetics, the outside look, but not fixing the things on the inside, which is your crawl space, your attic, the things you don't see. But those are the things, the foundation that holds your house up. And in that thinking made me start to think, what does my foundation look like? And I had to go back and look at my foundation and look on the inside. And as I started to do that, of course you start to question yourself. You start to second guess yourself. But then the journey of it all came to fruition. In 2010, my son was born. And I said, that's my purpose. That's why I'm here. A child, someone who's going to humble you, someone who's going to love you unconditionally, someone who you have to love unconditionally, someone who you have to take care of. It's bigger than you now. And when my son was born, he was born with 3 fingers on his left hand, and I never forget it. Holding him in the hospital, when he first came out of the womb, I looked down on him, and I saw 2 fingers fused together, and I saw a thumb. And I said, oh man. Oh man. Oh man. 3 times. And after the 3rd time, it fleeted. The thought fleeted. The feeling fleeted. I said, I have a child. And God sent this seed here to me and his mother. Why? With 3 fingers? Because that's what he put in him. And it was up to me, and it's up to his mother to nurture that seed. And he sent that child to the best parents that he felt fit to raise this child. And how could I disappoint him in this journey? And how could I disappoint my son in this journey? And then that made me realize that life itself is just a formality. It's a journey. It's a purpose. And I started studying the purpose of why he was born with 3 fingers on his hand. I started studying nutrition. I started studying naturopathic medicine. I started studying everything. For 5 years I studied. to learn that nutrition is something that you put inside of you. Those are the nutrients that help you grow. When you're nutrient deficient, you cannot grow. We can take all the pharmaceuticals we want. We can eat all the food we want. But when you eat food, how many nutrients do you get? Every day you eat something, how many nutrients did you get from that food? You do not know. Because a lot of the food that grows in the soil doesn't have nutrients. The soil that we grow food in doesn't have nutrients. So therefore, we eat a lot of empty food. We must supplement. We must take our vitamins and our minerals because that helps us grow on the inside. So I challenge you today to tell me and to tell yourself, what nutrients are you missing that's going to continue to feed your purpose, that's going to continue to feed your plan? I took it as far as getting a health coaching certificate to become a certified health coach because I wanted to be able to help other people. I also wanted to be able to mentally stimulate and inspire people, which is my purpose here at Toastmasters. So for you and your purpose, the job you're on, is that your purpose? What you do when you have fun, is that your purpose? What comes easiest to you? What are you an expert in that very little people around you know about? That's what I found to seem to be my purpose. The things that people didn't want to study, the things that people didn't want to look at, to take a deep dive in the dirt, to go back to the foundation. What's your foundation made up of? What's your purpose made up of? I challenge you to go find it. I don't care how old you are. Find your purpose.